I inadvertently brought home a tumor test result prop from the film set. During dinner, my contract wife, Claire, suddenly asked me how many months were left. I assumed she was asking about our 2-year marriage contract, so I blurted it out. Soon, probably only 3 months left. Claire fell silent after that. I quietly went abroad for 3 months of advanced study. When I returned, I heard from friends that Claire had gone almost insane searching the entire country because her late husband had said, "Live to see the person, die to see the body." One weekend I ordered takeout. Just as I was about to eat, Claire, whom I hadn't seen in months, suddenly sat opposite me. I was startled and looked up at her. In over a year of marriage, Claire and I had barely seen each other. She was always cold to me, and eating together was even rarer. According to her assistant, our marriage was just a 2-year contract, and I shouldn't think about things I shouldn't think about. Take the money and leave when the time comes. You are not at a loss. A figure like Claire is not someone you can ever reach. Claire just sat there, exuding nobility and arrogance from head to toe. Like someone accustomed to being favored by Ryan Liu, someone like me would strive for 10 years just to touch the hem of her skirt. I really couldn't reach her. Therefore, I always kept my distance. Apart from money and resources, I absolutely wouldn't ask about things I shouldn't care about. Claire seemed to have left the company in a hurry and hadn't changed clothes. She was still wearing a white dress, sitting opposite me silently, watching me slurp up the spicy soup. A drop of soup almost splattered on Claire, and she paused, suddenly asking me how many months were left. I was a little confused looking at her. Claire was usually very busy with work. For someone like her, time was money. She specifically took time out to find me just to ask how long until the marriage contract ended. Probably, she thought it was too embarrassing for me to be at her house and wanted me to leave quickly. I carefully calculated the time and comforted Claire. Soon, probably only about 2 months left, Miss Claire. Rest assured, by then I will leave on my own and won't bother you. After hearing this, Claire suddenly fell silent. After a moment, when she spoke again, her voice carried an almost imperceptible emotion. "So in this final period, do you have any wishes?" Since signing the marriage contract with Claire, I had received enough resources from her. Therefore, I shook my head. "No need, I have no more wishes." I didn't know if it was my imagination, but I saw Claire's eyes slightly tremble when she heard this. Recently, Claire had been a bit unusual. Before, I would only see her once every few weeks, but recently she had been home all day. Early in the morning, I had just replied to a message from my manager when I looked up and saw Claire sitting in the living room silently watching me. I got goosebumps for a moment, then smiled at her. "Miss Claire, haven't you been to the company these days?" Claire shook her head. "Company matters are not important now. I remembered the manager's message this morning saying Mike was returning to the country tomorrow." I glanced at the wine bottle on the living room table. Understanding dawned and I nodded. CLA had once told me the reason she sought me out for a 1-year marriage contract was because I had a face that was 70% similar to her white moonlight. Claire's white moonlight was named Mike, a rising star who became famous for a web drama last year. It was said that Claire had invested a lot of money in that drama, but after becoming famous, Mike decided to break up with CLA and run overseas. CLA finding me for a marriage contract was to provoke Mike. I was quite moved indeed. The love games of the rich are different. Working people like us are only worthy of playing supporting roles. These past few days, I had just finished filming a domineering CEO chasing his wife drama, so I was temporarily on vacation at home for a while. While cleaning up the room, I suddenly remembered the film prop I had inadvertently brought back from the set last time. It was a tumor test result, but I rummaged through my prop bag and couldn't find it. I figured it must have been taken by Rose and thrown away as trash. It wasn't a big deal. I just needed to tell the director. Not wanting to disturb Claire, who was missing her white moonlight in the living room, I stayed up in my room watching movies and snacking. While laughing, I accidentally choked on my water, coughing incessantly. Someone knocked on the door. CLA's slightly worried voice came in. "Is it worse again? Are you very uncomfortable?" I was choking so badly I couldn't speak. CLA immediately pushed the door open. I happened to be coughing violently, and when I looked up at her, tears were streaming down my face because of the coughing, making me look very distressed. Claire, usually calm and composed, suddenly became flustered. She called her assistant while looking at me. Don't worry, I'll have the assistant take you to the hospital right away. Finally, I felt better and looked at CLA in confusion. Hospital? Why go to the hospital for choking on water? I didn't quite understand. Claire was stunned, then reacted, standing silently. Right, no need to go to the hospital. In the end, the last 2 months were indeed beyond saving. Standing opposite CLA, she remained motionless, not knowing what she was thinking. I glanced at the tablet playing a TV drama, feeling that my rare rest time was still precious. I cleared my throat, taking the initiative to break the strange atmosphere. Miss CLA, if there's nothing else, I'd like to rest alone in my room. Is that okay? She seemed to wake up from a dream, staring at me. Her noble, cold eyes suddenly revealed a rare hint of sadness. CLA knocked on my door again. I was a bit helpless. Today she had come to see me more times than all the previous times combined. Opening the door, the smell of alcohol on Claire was even stronger. Her hair, which was always neatly styled, patted CLA's shoulder. Still not over it, are you? Too going to talk it out? CLA rubbed her temples irritably. Not yet. Kim continued teasingly. Hesitating doesn't suit your style. Be careful, someone might snatch him away. CLA glanced at Kim. Kim immediately shrank back, her shoulders changing her tone. Who dares to snatch your person? I was just kidding. Before CLA could speak, Kim suddenly looked around, puzzled. Hey, where's your husband? Why haven't I seen him all this time? CLA also looked around, noticing the empty seat, and frowned. I was hiding in the bathroom. It wasn't that I didn't want to come out, but the situation outside was too awkward. Mike and Ryan, his friend, were chatting. They were engrossed in conversation, completely unaware that there was someone in the bathroom. You're still angry with President CLA. It's strange to say President CLA is such a person, yet she's so infatuated with you, even deliberately finding a husband who looks like you. I don't think that person is as good as you. Mike chuckled, adjusting his hair in front of the mirror. Let him stay for a while. When I'm happy, I'll wave my hand and she won't come crawling back. But you also have to be careful. You two have been in a Cold War for so long. What if President Claire wises up? Where else can you find a cash cow who is so infatuated with you? Mike impatiently interrupted. Impossible. Except for me, who else could she like? That person who looks exactly like me? That she just found? That new husband Mike is talking about, the person who looked exactly like him, was currently hiding in the bathroom, plunged into silence. I clenched the door handle, hesitating whether to open the door or not. They had been talking for too long, and my legs were getting tired. But if I opened the door and the three of us faced each other, it would be really embarrassing. After considering, I decided to endure a little longer. Later, I must ask CLA for more money so that her white moonlight wouldn't be embarrassed. I had sacrificed too much. Not long after, someone knocked on the bathroom door. CLA's voice came from outside. Hello, is anyone inside? It's Claire. Mike and Ryan were both stunned. Ryan looked at Mike with an envious expression. Just left for a moment, and she's already worried, running over to find you. Mike couldn't hide his smug look, raising his eyebrows. I told you, who else would she like if not me? Then CLA said again, hello, is my husband in there? He's been in there for a long time and hasn't come out. I'm worried something might have happened to him. Inside, the bathroom was silent for a moment. The door creaked open. I brazenly walked out, facing Mike and Ryan, who were stunned in place. I forced a smile. What a coincidence. Both of you are here too. They didn't say anything. Mike's face turned pale for a moment. Then he strode out. As he passed CLA, he deliberately glared at her. I followed behind them, winking at CLA, who was waiting. Someone's angry. Aren't you going to coax him? What a fool. CLA looked at. I hesitated for a moment, then answered the phone. It was her assistant calling. Claire suddenly frowned, saying that her usual composure was gone. She hurriedly went outside. As she closed the door, she paused, turning her head back to say to me, wait for me to come back. I'll be quick. But for days I didn't see CLA. Seeing her so busy, I didn't want to bother her, so I didn't tell her about my plan to go abroad for further acting studies. Following a friend's advice, I quietly went abroad for 3 months of study. On the plane, I had already planned that after 3 months of study, it would be just in time for the expiration of my contract with CLA. Claire wouldn't see me at home and wouldn't think of me. When the time came, we could directly go through divorce procedures and I could focus on my career. Going abroad to save money, I switched to a foreign SIM card. For 3 months, I was like being separated from the world, completely focused on my studies until I returned to the country. Just getting off the plane and turning on my phone, switching back to the old SIM. A series of missed calls and messages overwhelmed me. A pop-up message appeared from an entertainment news account. Another beautiful but sad love story. To find her late husband, the famous female CEO of the Lee Corporation did not hesitate to turn the entire country upside down just to see her lover one last time. I read this sentence several times, standing in the wind, bewildered. CEO of Lee Corporation is CLA. I knew that, but I didn't know if I understood wrong, or if Claire had found a new husband again. Who exactly is this late husband? Returning to CLA's villa, the house was very quiet. Everything was still the same as when I left. Even the glass of juice I drank, leaving a mouthful and forgetting to throw it away, was still on the table, untouched. I was a little speechless. 3 months had passed. It should have fermented by now, right? My room door was locked. I wanted to go in to get my savings book, but I couldn't. That was my salary savings for over 10 years. Annoyed, I went to the sofa and sat down. The living room was full of wine bottles, probably hadn't been cleaned for months. Unable to stand it anymore, I picked up a broom and started cleaning, deciding to clean the house one last time before the contract ended. The villa door happened to open at that moment. It was Claire, just getting off work and returning home. It was only 2 p.m. now. Claire was a workaholic. Normally, she would definitely still be in a meeting at this time. But at this moment, she wasn't wearing makeup, dressed comfortably, dark circles under her eyes and head bowed. CLA was always neat and paid attention to her image. The white dress looked noble and cold, but at this moment, it was so haggard that it made me doubt if her company had gone bankrupt. Claire just entered the house, looked up, and her eyes met mine, who was sitting on the sofa. She froze for a moment, then bowed her head tiredly, rubbing her eyes, forcing a bitter, self-deprecating smile. Haven't slept. Well, these days, am I hallucinating again? I was a little speechless, then opened my mouth. Hallucination? I'm still alive and kicking right here. Claire paused blankly, widening her eyes to look at me for a moment. Then she suddenly picked up a half-empty beer bottle on the living room table, took a big gulp and walked straight in front of me. She stared at me, her lips slightly trembling. The strong smell of alcohol made me realize that Claire was probably not sober at this moment. Just as I felt something was wrong, Claire suddenly used both hands to cup my face, her eyes infatuated, tiptoeing to bite hard on my lips. She used force to hug my waist, her whole body wanting to burrow into my arms, one hand reaching under my shirt. Claire had a faint perfume scent, making me a little uneasy. I tried to push Claire away while calling out to her to wake up. Claire, am I really not dead? Claire heard my voice, looked up at me, her eyes red and terrifying. Then she closed her eyes, her voice hoarse and low. Dreaming is also good. If I can meet you in a dream, then let the dream last a little longer. Dream? My foot. I hated getting entangled with drunk people. Claire's actions became even more intense, as if afraid I would disappear immediately. I was exhausted and had to give up. But just as I gave up, Claire suddenly closed her eyes and fell into my arms, making me scared. I hurriedly checked her breathing. Fortunately, perhaps it was because she was too tired, she had fallen asleep. I was very annoyed. I really didn't know what she was suddenly going crazy about. I called Rose at home to come clean up. The person on the other end of the line heard my voice and seemed panicked. Okay, I'll come right away. I'll come right away. I was silent for a moment, then explained. Did Claire tell Rose that I passed away? Actually, I'm not dead. I'm still healthy. Rose's voice seemed even more tense. Okay, I'll come right away. I'll come right away. By 8 p.m., Rose hadn't come, and Claire hadn't woken up. My room door was still locked, and I kept calling everyone around, asking what exactly happened. After asking around, I finally found out that Rose at home had taken my tumor test result and told Claire that I had terminal cancer. I fell silent because I remembered the film prop I lost last time on the set. That tumor test result. It turned out to be taken by Rose and given to Claire. I also remembered Claire's previous questions and suddenly understood. So at that time, Claire asking me how many months were left was asking how many days I had left to live, not how long until our contract ended. I said 3 months left. Luckily, Claire had only just started posting search notices online these past few days. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have a welcome home party when I returned, but a funeral. Claire woke up at around 11 p.m. She opened her eyes, first blankly looking at me for a moment, then rubbing her temples and looking at me dazed. I forced a smile. "Hello, Miss CLA. You're finally awake." Ciela silently nodded. I succinctly told her, "I'm not dead. I'm still doing very well. I just went abroad for 3 months of study. Last time I was going to tell you, but you had gone to the company and seemed busy, so I didn't bother you. That tumor test result was just my film prop." Last time, Ciela paused for a few seconds, then her eyelashes trembled slightly before she spoke. "Film prop." I took a deep breath. Yes, just something I inadvertently brought home. The atmosphere in the room was silent for a moment. After a moment, Ciela spoke again, her voice slightly hoarse. "So you really are not dead?" "Of course, Claire," I replied. She swallowed, then looked at me, frowning at my lips. "Your lips, why are they swollen like that? What did you do abroad?" Afraid CLA would make even more of a fuss than organizing a funeral for me, I quickly explained. "You kissed me. Did you forget?" CLA was stunned again. Her cold eyes quickly turned red. She coughed lightly twice, unnaturally saying, "Too much alcohol, so I lost control a bit." Sorry. Not just lost control. I silently gritted my teeth. Since the misunderstanding was resolved, I immediately told Claire about the main thing. "Oh right, this time I rushed back to handle the divorce procedures. Our 2-year marriage contract has expired. Are you free tomorrow?" "Not free," Claire immediately replied. I asked, "Then the day after tomorrow? The day after that?" "All not free." Ciela looked at me. "You know I'm very busy." I felt silent, but actually I wasn't in a hurry either. I rushed back only because I thought CLA was in a hurry to divorce me. After all, she still had to pursue Mike again. At this moment, thinking carefully about this misunderstanding, I suddenly felt a bit strange. I sensed that CLA seemed to have a special intense feeling for me, but wasn't I just a substitute for Mike? When I first married CLA, it wasn't that I had never developed other feelings for her. After all, CLA had a face that was particularly captivating to men. After more than a year of living together, no matter how much you dislike someone, it was hard to avoid developing feelings. But very quickly, I reminded myself Claire and I were from 2 different worlds. She already had someone in her heart. I could like anyone, but I couldn't let my feelings become so lowly. Therefore, I always deliberately didn't care about Claire's life, and things that didn't concern me. I absolutely wouldn't ask more about any sprouts that shouldn't grow. I would nip them in the bud. I didn't know if the feelings Claire had for me at this moment stemmed from habit, after more than a year of living together under contract, or from a simple flutter after seeing me as a substitute for Mike, but neither of these I could accept. Therefore, I smiled lightly at Claire. "Then you choose a time. We'll quickly go through the divorce procedures. These next few days I won't bother you anymore." I moved out and rented a place to live myself. The next time I met Mike was because he took the initiative to come to my house. He looked me up and down confidently, took a sip of tea, and then slowly opened his mouth. "Do you know why CLA married you?" I calmly nodded. He continued, "You know, because you have a face similar to mine. She sees you as my substitute." Mike paused, then said, "Knowing this, why are you still by her side? You're an eyesore to me. You should know, as long as I show a little willingness to CLA, she will immediately come back to me." I honestly said, "I know. Therefore, we will divorce in a few days." Mike was obviously not expecting me to say this. He opened his mouth, then fell silent, seemingly not knowing what to say next. After a moment, he snorted coldly. "Knowing is good. In the future, don't cling to her anymore." Mike was about to leave, opening the door when he faced CLA, who was standing at the door. Clearly, she didn't know how long she had been listening. I felt a little embarrassed for them being seen by CLA. Mike's eyes suddenly turned red. "Claire, I know I was wrong. It was my fault. I shouldn't have run abroad. As long as you come back to me, I will never run around again, okay?" Claire frowned again, stepping aside. "Mike, please respect yourself. Words that shouldn't be said. Don't say them so as not to cause misunderstandings. Mike was stunned. He was originally arrogant in nature. This was the first time he apologized, but he was rejected so bluntly and immediately became angry. What do you mean? I've already apologized to you. What else do you want? Claire looked at him with a calm expression. What do I want? This question is what you should ask me, right? You keep clinging to me. What exactly do you want? I was startled, feeling a whiff of gossip. Claire continued. Or are you just deliberately trying to gain fame by constantly bringing me up? I gave you face and didn't argue. What else do you want? Then she turned to look at me, who was attentively watching the drama, raising an eyebrow, still standing there watching the show. Last time I hadn't finished talking to you before you left. Today is just the right time to clarify everything. After hearing what Claire said, I felt it was indeed an earth-shattering gossip story. Because initially, the investor of Mike's film ran away halfway through filming. The director told Mike to go to parties to find sponsors. Nicely put, it was finding sponsors, but in reality it was unspoken rules. By chance, CLA met Mike at a party. Seeing Mike being harassed by an 800-pound exaggeration fat woman, Claire helped him and conveniently invested all the money in the film. Claire was always proper and upright, unlike other rich daughters who spent their days eating, drinking, and playing. So as soon as this happened, there were many rumors saying Mike was the white moonlight that Claire loved, but couldn't have because of CLA's noble status. Many people wanting to curry favor with CLA deliberately flattered Mike. Because of vanity, Mike deliberately didn't clarify, setting the rumors spread over time. Even he believed in those rumors. He thought if Claire didn't like him, why would she invest so much money in a terrible web drama if it wasn't for someone she knew? If Claire didn't like him, why would she never take the initiative to clarify those rumors? But this time, Claire didn't give Mike any face. She looked at Mike with a slightly cold expression. Do you know why I always don't bother with the things you do? If not according to common sense, any star who offends Claire would not only disappear from the entertainment industry, but also become even more famous. Mike, you should thank this face of yours. I was shocked, widening my eyes. Turned out we were both substitutes. Claire saw my surprised expression and found it a bit funny. She took my hand. Remember the first time we met was on the plane? Of course I remembered. Therefore, later when I found out about Claire's identity, I had been worried for a long time. The first time I met Claire was on the plane. At that time, Claire had just returned from studying abroad. As a normal person, I found Claire beautiful, so I deliberately tried to strike up a conversation with her. I told her, I'm an actor, but only an 18th-tier actor. Claire was reading a financial newspaper, just humming in agreement. Then I pointed to a skyscraper that almost touched the clouds, saying, This is my dad's company. Claire finally reacted, looking at me in slight surprise, then pointing to an even taller building next to it, saying, Coincidentally, the building next door is my dad's. I secretly laughed at her, really bragging. I was just joking, but she exaggerated even more. Who didn't know that the tallest building in the city center was Lee Corporation's? Could she be the daughter of the chairman of Lee Corporation? Later, when I got off the plane, I found out that she really was the daughter of the chairman of Lee Corporation. At that time, Claire saw me standing with her, waiting for her car. Claire turned to ask me, Shall I give you a ride? It just so happens I have to go to the company later. You're Mr. Tang's son, right? I forced a smile, saying, No need. But Claire smiled at me, her face so beautiful that it could make any boy infatuated, instantly making me flustered. Mr. Tang did my dad a favor. It's okay, I'll give you a ride. I immediately agreed, but before reaching the company, I didn't dare to get out of the car. I said, I'm hungry, and tricked Claire into going to a small roadside restaurant to eat wontons, then tricked her into going to a fried chicken restaurant to eat fried chicken. Claire clearly had never eaten these things before. She ate very elegantly, slowly cutting the chicken breast into small pieces with a knife and fork, making me watch in a daze. Then she said to me, Thank you for taking me to eat such delicious food.
I smilte her.
Right? Delicious food will make you feel better. Especially fried chicken. Claire laughed. Indeed, feeling a bit better now. So can we go meet Mr. Tang now? I was silent for a moment. Wait, I'm still not full enough. I went for afternoon tea too. After afternoon tea, as I expected, it was already dark. I turned to Claire with a regretful expression. Oh, it's too late. Let's meet Mr. Tang tomorrow. How about we go see a movie first? Now Claire hesitated for a long time before nodding. Later, I found out that the day I met Claire was the second day after her parents and elder sister passed away. Because she didn't want to take over her father's company, she had been angry with her father for missing their last call before the car accident. Initially, they had booked a plane to Mexico, intending to surprise Claire, who hadn't returned home for 3 years. But on the way they had a car accident. The last call to Claire rang for a long time, but no one answered. The day Claire returned to the country, she planned that after meeting the last important people in her life, she would find a place to end her life. But she accidentally met me, who was mesmerized by her beauty. I stuck to her from morning to night. Coincidentally, the young lady who was used to eating delicacies found street food very delicious for the first time, forgetting all the nightmares and the pain of losing her loved ones. She suddenly thought it shouldn't be like this. There are still things she hasn't seen, hasn't explored, hasn't tried. She should try them all. So not now. For a long time after that, I didn't see Claire again. I focused on filming. No matter what film I filmed, it was a terrible failure. When I heard news about Claire, it was on Rainbow News. First, seeing that she was so young, she had regained her father's shares and become the CEO of Lee Corporation. Then seeing rumors about her relationship with Mike. A few times I met Claire at parties. She was surrounded by everyone, seated in the center, while I sat in a hidden corner with the director. Then Claire suddenly contacted me, saying she wanted to sign a 2-year marriage contract, paying me $6 million upfront, and after completing the contract, she would pay another $8 million. Hearing such good news, I still asked Claire's assistant, "Why do you want to sign a marriage contract with me?" Claire's assistant also knew about the rumors between Claire and Mike, so she advised me, "Don't think too much. Claire is with you just because you have a face similar to Mike." I didn't feel too disappointed. After all, Claire and I had only met once. How could someone like her notice me? Actually, when I first got married, I still secretly had a little hope in my heart. After all, the first time I met Claire, I knew clearly that her face was indeed my type. But after getting married, Claire was always cold to me, and gradually I no longer had any hope. I just needed to do my job well. I knew clearly that between us was just a transaction. After hearing the truth from Claire, I touched my chest. My heart seemed to beat faster. I thought maybe it was because of happiness. Then I asked Claire, "So does that mean you fell in love with me at first sight?" Claire was silent for a moment, then denied, "Not really. I was disappointed actually. When I first signed the marriage contract with you, I just wanted to experience all the things I had never tried before ending my life. I found you because you were very interesting and I had never been in love. I thought after 2 years I would be tired of it, but then she started to care about me inexplicably until she found out I only had 3 months to live. She realized that some feelings only emerge when storms strike. This kind of feeling is not companionship out of habit, but a sudden realization of liking after almost losing someone." Hearing this, I was a little speechless, looking at Claire. "Why didn't you say so earlier? Why did you have to make such a big fuss? Wouldn't it be better to clarify it earlier?" Claire was a bit embarrassed at this moment. Clearing her throat, she said, "I thought you hated me. Kim told me that me finding you to sign a contract like this was wrong, and would make you misunderstand that I treated you like a commodity, not respecting you. Moreover, your attitude towards me was always unwilling to care, always wanting to avoid me. For example, last time going to the party, you didn't even want to sit with me. I was strangely silent, thinking about whether my moral bottom line was too low or not. Why would I find out that signing the contract would get more than 10 million? I only thought about the joy of being rewarded and didn't think about respect or not." After a moment, I said to Claire, "Help me tell Kim that she thought too much. Next time there's such a good thing, remember to find me." Claire raised an eyebrow at me. "Next time." I forced a smile. "Just enough for this time." Mike, forgotten on the side, blankly looked at Claire for a moment. Then he collapsed, coldly cursing, "Claire, you jerk." Then he left. My luggage was still downstairs. I planned to clean up today and leave Claire's house. Who knew so many things would happen? Therefore, I asked Claire, who was standing blocking the door, "Are we still getting divorced now?" Claire looked at me with a funny expression. "What do you think?" I thought for a moment, saying, "But you haven't paid the 8 million deposit yet. If we don't get divorced, I'll be at a slight loss." Claire was amused. "Loss? If we don't get divorced, how much do you want?" 8 million is also okay. I nodded. "Okay then." Claire was a little incredulous, repeating my words. "Okay then," sounding unwilling.
I smilte her.
It's indeed unwilling. Who told you to plan to hold a funeral for me? In the evening, while having dinner at home, Claire asked, "Do you know what day it is today?" I looked at Claire a bit confused. She pointed to the calendar beside her. "Just came back from abroad and so many things happened I almost forgot. It's almost New Year's Day." Rose said that since the incident, Claire had spent every New Year's alone. I smiled, taking Claire's hand, saying to her, "In the future, you won't be alone anymore. Every year, I will spend New Year's with you at 12 a.m. Fireworks loomed everywhere. Whether it was Claire and me lying in each other's arms, or my crying downstairs, or all those who were besieged by life at this moment, they all simultaneously looked up at the fireworks in the sky. The brilliant light illuminated this vast world. The world seemed to be paused at this moment. Whether lost or making mistakes, look up and see the road to the future stretching from above to your feet. Life is colorful and varied. After the fog dissipates, there will surely be a wide road open. After the misunderstanding was resolved, the relationship between Claire and Mark became more delicate. He no longer deliberately kept his distance but often appeared by her side, using all sorts of small ways to probe her limits. One winter afternoon, I returned home and saw Mark sitting on the living room carpet, intently piecing together a jigsaw puzzle of the night sky. He looked up, smiling brightly at me. "Claire, you're back. Come and see, I'm almost done." I walked over and squatted beside him, looking at the nearly completed jigsaw puzzle. It was a picture of the night sky, a dark blue background with glittering stars, as if bringing the entire night sky into our home. "It's so beautiful," I softly praised. He suddenly took my hand, looking at me intently. "Claire, I want to look at more night skies with you, not just in jigsaw puzzles." A sweet feeling welled up in my heart. I gently took his hand back. "Okay, let's look together." At that moment, I knew my life had been completely changed by him. No longer a cold contract and a transaction, but love.